Okay, so the book I read is Confine Me from Megan Miranda. Okay, so I really like this book personally. It's a really good read for especially teenagers because of all the stuff going on in it, and like it's super easy to relate to, so I really liked the book. Okay, so for the first section, plot analysis, the type and genre of this book is like love, romantic. It's a lot of stuff that is easy to connect to. Like it's thematic. Like it wants you to keep reading. It makes you want to keep reading it. And it's very like mysterious. Like you want to know what happens next. You want to try to figure it out. So the structure of writing is it's written in chapters, but it's written in chapters that are from both Nolan and Kennedy. So these are the two main characters, and it shows like what they're going through, but what they're going through at the same time, but in their own ways. And until they find each other, they don't even know like about each other. So for character analysis, the two main characters, as I said, was Kennedy and Nolan. So to begin with, Nolan. He is 17 years old. He lives with his mom and dad, but he feels pushed out of his home because of his parents. So after his brother and dog went missing and nobody can figure out what happened, his parents make it his job to like help missing kids try to find their moms and help their parents find their missing kids. So Nolan really struggles feeling safe in his home when he kind of feels pushed away because he feels like his parents find those kids more important than him. So for Kennedy, a huge tragedy happens to Kennedy, and she can't live at her old house because of what happened. So she moves in with her Uncle Joe. Joe does his best, but he's not her family, or not like her mom and dad and brother, but she knows that, and she has a really hard time with that. So Kennedy, as you read the book, you'll figure out what happens or what's the big tragedy. So Kennedy has a really hard time with this, and she was really close with her brother before he died. And he had a love for the cosmos. So when he died, Kennedy took that on. So he had a really good setup in their shack behind their house. So Kennedy is going in there and she's playing with all these different stuff, and she like sneaks back into her old house like without Joe knowing or anything. And she sneaks back in there and she gets an odd reading from like her house, and it's a negative reading, so she doesn't know what to do. So her first thought is to go into the shack, go on the computers, and go into a random messaging board. So Nolan catches the same weird thing going on from his brother's room, and he doesn't know what to do. So he goes on the same messaging board, and that's how they start talking, even though at first they don't know they're talking to each other. And then they accidentally meet in the woods, in a park that's in the woods behind Kennedy's old house. So for the theme, I'd say the theme is that like love is important and is always needed, because in the beginning of the book, as it's talking about the tragedies and what all happened, it's also talking about like what struggles like they have gone through, and like it talks about how they push everybody away and how like they feel alone in this world. But as they find each other and like they find like their own worth, they realize like in loving each other, they realize like how important it is and how like needed it is. So for literary techniques, I'd say they use a lot of like symbolism and foreshadowing, because it like uses symbolism because it goes through different things, and like the old house, like it reminds her of her family, like that's really important to her. So then Nolan with his EMF reader, like that reminds him of his brother. His brother's not there, but that's what he uses to remind himself of him. For foreshadowing, so the book is, as I said before, the book is written as Nolan's perspective and as Kennedy's perspective at the same time, but they don't know like each other and what's going on until you get further in the book. So as it's talking, like something will happen in Kennedy's life, and then you're like, wait, what happened in Nolan's? And then it does, and it goes through the different ways that happens. That's it for part 1. Okay, so for the second part of this, author's perspective. So I did a lot of digging on Megan and like her life, and I couldn't really find much from her childhood, but I did find out some stuff about like her before she started writing, like right recently before. So I found a website called Fantastic Fiction, which I know doesn't sound reliable, but after looking through a bunch of websites and stuff, I found out that it's all true. So I found out that she was a science and like high school teacher before she like began writing her books, which this is just one. She wrote many books actually, and I haven't got to reading all of them, but I really want to after reading Come Find Me. So I think like her fascination with science and stuff like that is what like drove her like to write all these books, because none of them are really like real, they're all fiction. So I think that like when with her science, like with her fascination towards science came like her fascination towards like the cosmos and the stars, and that's really what is truly this book is about, is the cosmos and the stars, and how like they drew Kennedy and Nolan together. And I don't really think, like, it didn't really say she had any men in her life, but it did go through, like, she's a high school teacher, she loves science, she has a BS in biology, she has an MIT, and she, like, her post-college years, she either was in a lab or reading books, which I think really influenced her. So she's, like, a book lover. So as she's reading all these books, it helped her, like, really influence her in, like, the way she wrote her books and the way she, like, the way she does things. And she also was an MIT educational counselor. And I feel like as it's going through all these things, like, she really, like, connected to teenagers. Like, she really threw a lot of stuff in there that teenagers are, at least me, myself, was really easy to connect to. And I think, like, her time being a counselor, like, helped her be able to connect, like, the way she did and make it easier for her to write her book about teenagers, because she had that insight that most authors don't. Also, for her science degree, I think that with having that science degree, it made her, like, if she would have never became a science teacher, I don't think she could have wrote any of the books she did, because they're all fiction and all are about, like, a bunch of different things that, like, aren't really true, but, like, they could happen. Like, all the missing girls, the safest lies, come find me, the last to manifest, or the last to vanish. Like, she writes all these different books, but none of them are, like, true. They're all fiction, and all have something that's, like, fake or out of this world. And I think her, like, education as, like, a science teacher helped her, and her counseling major helped her be able to write this book. That's it for part 2. Okay, so for the last section of my podcast, it's self and society. Okay, so as I was going through this book, I realized that it's really easy to connect to Nolan. And I think that Megan's insight as a school counselor really helped her be able to write this book on the level she did. So I'd say I really connected to Kennedy really easily, because she's a teenage girl and she's going through a lot. And I'm a high school teenage girl, and I think my life is hard. But as this book goes on and it talks, it shows that, like, her life really isn't that bad. Like, yes, bad things have happened. Bad things have happened in my life too, but could be a lot worse. So one of the main things that happen is Kennedy's, like, big family tragedy. And I feel like this is really easy to connect to, even though it's not on the same level. So we have all lost loved ones. And the way Kennedy lost her family was terrible. Like, I could never imagine that happening to me. But she immediately, like, she pushes away her friends, like, the people that could help her the most. And I feel like everybody can connect to that, especially teenagers, because can I tell this person? Can I trust this person? Will this person be there for me? It's really just knowing, like, who we can trust and realizing, can we trust them? And I think that really is easy for all teenagers to connect to. And this book told me about my own role in society, that it's not even big. Like, there's so many bigger things going on around me that I don't even, like, realize are going on or happening. And I need to, like, be more aware of, like, what's going on in my friend's life. Like, are they okay? What are they going through? Am I able to help them in any way? Because, like, what Kennedy went through, she lost her brother, her mom, and her dad all at once. And I don't think I would be able to go through that without my mom, my dad, my friends, people I'm closest to. And she just pushed everybody away. And that shows in our society that we don't really know how to, like, cope. Like, what's our way? We push everybody away and we deal with it ourselves. And some people will seek help from a counselor, but some people don't feel safe talking to a counselor. And I can connect to that because I don't. And I should. It's not anything that's wrong, but I feel like in our society today, it's not right to seek help. It's something that you're supposed to be able to get over, which I don't think that's healthy either, but I don't know how else to do it. And I think a lot of teenagers can connect to that. And I feel like this book really shows that what is going on in her life shouldn't affect everybody else's. So even though I'm going through something, I shouldn't be mad at everybody else. Like, I shouldn't blame it on everybody else. People are trying to help me. I shouldn't blame it on them. I shouldn't say make it their problem, because I feel like they can help you, but this really shows that in society we're all just so little and we don't realize what's going on around us. And if we just paid more attention and like realize what was going on around us more than just ourselves, it would help us be more aware of what's going on and everything else in the world. And I really feel like this book points out that, so Kennedy and Nolan go through their own things at the same time, and they don't really start to trust each other till probably half, 3/4 through the book. And I feel like that's like a really important part of the book. Like, they push each other away, which I feel like is really easy to relate to. They push each other away because they don't know what else to do. And once they start opening up to each other, I feel like it helps Kennedy's relationship with Joe and Nolan's relationship with his mom and dad. And it shows that, like, we all could check on the people around us more. And it tells me that our society is not there for each other, even though they should be more.